My name is Carmen Ocañas Lerma. I am the administrator for child nutrition, and I have a couple of updates for you. I see that there are 85 people in the Finance Advisory Council, which that makes you a warrior to be here on a Friday right before our break. As always, I always include the acknowledgement statement that the state requires us to include in all our presentations, that what I'm about to talk about doesn't cover everything and the scope of the program, but that you are responsible for manuals, alerts, handbooks, and all of the other good stuff that comes out of that at the state level. My talking points today are CNP flexibilities, supply chain disruptions, reimbursement, funds. Every time I present to RAC, I always want to make sure that I bring you pertinent information as it relates to the finance side. I'm going to talk about administrative review, procurement review, and financial review. These ARs, or administrative reviews, have gone into this, what I call the trifecta, which means that when a child nutrition program is reviewed, they're going to get all three of the review cycles all in one sitting. So COVID-19 brought about a lot of crazy things and a lot of disruption, but for the 21-22 school year, USDA has approved some waivers and flexibility so that child nutrition can continue to provide these meals to students. And some of those, I have them bulleted. I also have a screenshot of what it looks like in the TDA website. But the flexibilities include the non-congregate meal service, alternative meal times, no child present and parent pickup, offsite monitoring, and then some offer versus serve waivers for senior high schools. As you know, when we started the school year, we started with the hope that everything was going to go back to normal. And there was a lot of different things that went on, whether children were going to be remote or they're not, or they are. And so USDA, in preparation for that, offered these flexibilities to ensure that school districts that took that waiver, that percentage of remote students, they could still receive some meal service during the remote attendance. The other flexibilities that are available to school districts are the targeted meal pattern flexibility option. These three are very important because this compliance with this ties back to funds. If there's ever a finding in some of these areas, then there is some fiscal sanction involved against the department. So the targeted meal pattern flexibility is for the meal pattern waiver, sodium target notification form, and targeted meal pattern flexibility waiver for all of the I have four programs, which is the ACFP, that's the at-risk supper and snack, and SOP, that's the lunch, breakfast, and SSO. The majority of the school districts in Region 1 have opted to operate summer seamless operation, which is that National School Lunch Program extension of the meal service. But this allows school districts to serve meals to any child 18 and under. So it is a community feeding program. Latest news and updates as of November 16th, USDA issued guidance giving TDA the discretion to provide technical assistance in lieu of fiscal action for an SOP in sites that fail to meet meal pattern requirements due to COVID-19, and also due to related to supply chain disruption. So what that means is that if a school district cannot obtain, for example, let's say milk, and that is one of the components in the meal program, that because of supply chain disruption, it doesn't get there, there's no trucks, there's no, all the different things that are going on right now, then TDA will provide technical assistance to the district rather than dinging them on the fiscal and financial side. There are a couple of things that need to be done on behalf of the school district when this happens. This is hot off the press. This form just came out yesterday or the day before. And in the past, TDA was saying, you do not have to let us know if you're doing, if you have supply chain disruption and you're doing some form of emergency buying or substitution. And so what they did is they provided a form to keep track of any deviations due to COVID-19 for supply chain disruption. And so they provided this form, and I included in the PowerPoint It is linked, but we have also posted it on our website, the Food and Nutrition Program website at Region 1. We have a special site for districts that are being reviewed where we provide resources and different forms that come out from the state level so that they can have one place to go and collect these items. Now we get to the meaty part, right? And I want to like deviate a little bit from the presentation and say that I recently attended a training at Region 1, and it was a young lady from the business department. And she started doing her presentation, and she right away, and I thought, what a great presenter. You know, she said, I have done my part to prepare for this training. I am engaged with you, and I am committed to this presentation. And she closed by saying, I hope you are as well, which I thought that's a very good point right there, because a lot of times we log on to presentations and meetings thinking my takeaway is going to be minimal, and so we start getting distracted. So I just want to bring attention to the importance of administrative review, procurement review, and financial review for your child nutrition program. And the reason for that is because in most districts, child nutrition is probably the second largest budget of federal funds in one district. And it requires a lot of collaborative effort on behalf of business and finance to support these individuals. So the districts that are being reviewed this coming year I have them on my PowerPoint, and they also have the date associated with the review. The ones that are in green are the ones that we have already finished out, or the reviewer has already in the process of closing out, and they've done well. So in preparation for the Mercedes, San Benito, Hidalgo, we are actively engaged with this director and providing them technical assistance as we move through in the process. This one's hot off the press as well. CACFP at risk, which is your suppers and your snacks. And a lot of districts use this program during the pandemic to bundle meals and provide additional meals to community members, which was fantastic. But remember that anytime that you collect any form of federal reimbursement, there's always strings attached. And I tell all the directors, when you venture out and add on additional programs that are federally funded, the string attached is that you are prone to review or audit. So these are the districts that are going to be reviewed for CACFP at risk. That is a different side of the house. It is not under school operations. This is called community operations. That world is a little bit different than national school lunch programs. So the requirements of documentation and paperwork is different. And we usually call a specialist at the service center, we call that individual the translator, because we have to correlate the national school lunch lingo with the CACFP lingo. The two districts that I have in yellow are those districts that are getting all of the reviews, meaning that they are getting administrative, procurement, financial, and the at-risk, and that's San Benito and Mission. So, for example, Mission is getting the four reviews. Okay, now we have not lost anyone yet. We've done well with the reviews, and we have managed to keep these directors sane for the most part. But the level and complexity of these reviews is high level. So do expect to chime in and offer assistance and offer that support to these directors. What does a financial review entail? And I get this call a lot with a very panicky director, but they're asking for these things. That's when you walk over to business office and start gathering these items. But for the financial review, you are expected to upload a chart of accounts, detailed general ledger, statement of net assets or net position, statement of activity or revenues and expenditures, a vendor paid list with total expenses per vendor, and a completed adult meal calculator. That last one has been a little bit touchy with a couple of districts in our area, and I will talk a little bit more about what that means on the adult meal calculator. You are required to fill out a resource management summary. It's a document that the reviewer provides the director. Usually the business manager fills this out. Sometimes the director will fill it out with assistance from the business office because it does ask some pretty specific items, like what is your beginning balance, ending balance. So sometimes the director has to go in and pull those reports. The most common finding under resource management summary in a financial review is excess fund balance. School districts in Region 1, by nature, because they are CEP or Provision 2, are excess fund balance generator. That's a great problem to have, but you need to be aware that when that happens, you need to support that by filling out a plan to reduce excess fund balance. Send it to the state, obtain approval, and keep that for your record and documentation. The next most common finding is proportion of non-program food costs that was greater than the proportion of non-program food revenue. What does that mean? Well, that means that perhaps a school district did not recover all of the revenue from a la carte sales. Let's say you have a little snack bar, or you do a catering, or you have a catering contract with a Head Start or a daycare somewhere in the community. You have to ensure that your markup or your recovery from the sales of that food item, which is a non-program food, must happen. And there have been a couple of districts that have gotten a ding on that for not recovering the non-program food costs. Risk flags, and I'd like to talk about these because all is not over once you fill out your resource management summary. There are some things that trigger a risk flag. And of course, you as a business manager know that this is not the end of the world, that is in the audit world is very common. So a risk flag means that a comprehensive review is necessary. And there are some pieces inside of the resource management summary that will require comprehensive, meaning that they're just going to ask more questions. They are going to ask for further documentation. And so what are they? A trigger for a risk flag is any transfer of funds other than approved indirect costs out of the food service account to support general school district expenses or non-food service related activities. So transfer out from CMP to local, that is not an indirect cost. We have numbered them based on the resource management summary. So 703, it talks about purchasing equipment with grant funds. And if the answer was no, that may be a trigger. And this one, were there any financial findings related to unallowable costs or financial mismanagement in the child nutrition program on a previous administrative review or part of an audit? For example, the OIG, the single audit, previously called the A133, or any other state audits within the past 3 years. We have had a district in our area that answered this question incorrectly. So we really encourage districts to look at their prior audit, and usually everybody's audited every 3 years. So you would have looked at the history from the previous audit to find out whether your child nutrition received a finding in the financial area. So that's very important that this be answered correctly. It's also very important that it be answered completely. You cannot leave any blanks. That leaves the auditor to assess the district not knowing how to fill out this form. Now, the internal controls, as part of the resource management summary, the requirement is that written procedures be uploaded, that annual allowable cost training occur, and that some evidence of that is provided. Financial management standards, operating procedures, the assignment of financial responsibilities to different individuals, and policies for ensuring that delinquent debt is not paid for with food service funds. That is related more to school districts that charge students for meals and whether that debt is being carried forward from 1 year to the next. And I believe we only have about 2 districts in our area that collect lunch applications. Again, the revenue from non-program foods, this seems to be kind of like a little hot topic. People are thrown off by this one. And just know that a non-program food is a smart snack, any food and beverage sold to students at schools during the school day. For example, a la carte, cafeteria, school stores, and snack bars and vending machines. Adult meals, The school district needs to provide the state with evidence of calculating the adult meal charge, right? We get a lot of phone calls from panicked directors stating that the superintendent doesn't want an increase because the teachers haven't received a raise or it's bad PR. The board is not supporting an adult meal increase. I've heard it all. However, this federally funded program requires that a calculation be conducted for the adult meal. The form is available on the TDA website and it is a set price. Anything below the calculation is considered non-compliance. And then the expectation is that the school district at the local level transfer in the shortfall from not calculating the adult meal correctly. So leaving the feelings out and whether the meal is, it's for the teacher and I need to get a bigger plate and all these other comments that go on at the district level, just know that there is a federal mandate that says this needs to be calculated accordingly, and you need to make sure that you recover all of the funds, as child nutrition cannot subsidize adult meals. A little bit more on adult meal, and you need to also insert the method and the price that was being charged. I get a lot of blanks, and so I have to make a phone call and say, you need to add what it was, we're charging the adult meal price. Yes, but what was it? So it needs to be stipulated in the form. This table right here, the calculation for program foods versus non-program food. I wanted to talk to you about the cost of non-program food. This second item right here, the second bullet. A lot of districts are not separating the non-program food cost, and what that means is that there is no sub-account created for foods that is purchased for resale. So if you're not separating it, then you're going to have to do some form of cost accounting to determine what the food cost is for those resale items. And this one is, this is another one up there. This will trigger a comprehensive review. So the nutrition director will be asked to fill out an additional form and additional calculations. Deadlines. The resource management summary has a hard deadline. And I will repeat that, right? In case anybody that's in the Zoom walked away to go refresh their coffee. The resource management summary is a hard deadline. You cannot miss this deadline. You have to upload your resource management summary on the day. At Region 1, I always ask directors, send it to me a week in advance so that I can look at it and make sure that there is no missing components. I will gladly look at it, give you feedback, send it back. We still get several districts that will send it to us at 4:30 on the day that it's due. Can you look at it and tell me what you think? Like, yeah, well, not completing it or uploading it late will require a corrective action. So that's finding number one, right? You haven't even started the review. So just be aware of that and be aware that that resource is very important. It needs to be filled out completely and accurately. For procurement review, I don't have a lot of, I wanted to spare you the pain of listening to a presentation on procurement reviews, but I will go over what has been the common theme or the most piece that has been a finding in a lot of districts. For procurement review supporting documentation, you are required to provide a code of conduct, a policy and procedure manual, a detailed general ledger, and a vendor paid list. Vendors are to be listed based on the procurement method that was used. I lose a lot of people in this part. What do you mean? What does that mean, method? What method? How do I list them? I'm like, oh, we need to relax. The procurement method that is used, whether it's micro, small, or formal. What contract did you use to procure items and services from this particular vendor? And then you just fill out the table one by one. The other most common item is that code of conduct. The procurement code of conduct is the one that is contained in your manual that says what happens to an employee that doesn't follow policy and procedure. Does that employee do they get reprimanded? Do they, like what happens if you don't follow proper procurement procedures? A lot of schools upload a code of conduct for teachers. How to discipline a student, how, that board policy that says what professional conduct. Do not mistake that by a code of conduct for procurement procedures, right? I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. The most common findings in procurement review is a missing code of conduct, missing policies and procedures. This is a hot topic right here because these policies and procedures, these procurement reviews have been going on for about 6 years. We've already cycled out. So this will be maybe the second or third time that a district will get reviewed for procurement procedures, and we're still not seeing a solid policy manual. What policy? Like, I was here 3 years ago and we were having the same issue again. So that you need to be very careful with that. Contract management, that's also another hot one. Once you start using, for example, formal contracts from the South Texas Cooperative, or you have food service management company, or you have a consultant, or you have whatever it is that you have, there needs to be some action on behalf of the district to make sure that the contract is being fulfilled as it is stipulated in the contract. And so we do lose people in this part because they're not aware, or they tend to, well, I used the cooperative, so I should be okay. Yes, you are okay, but you still need to look at and be familiar with what is inside that contract. The next one was do not use the appropriate procurement threshold. Some districts will, and this is just an example, districts will begin purchasing what they think is micro and not checking that micro threshold throughout the year. So they venture outside of micro. Let's say you're doing Sam's or HEB or a Target, or you're buying items at the nearby store. But once you move above micro and you go into small threshold, you need to obtain 3 quotes. And so I'm seeing purchases in the $50,000 and $60,000 mark for a specific vendor with only 1 quote. So that is going to be a ding if that vendor gets selected because you're not using the appropriate threshold. And that is all I have for you here to help. My team, Kim Keller is a specialist and registered dietitian. Iris Perez is also our specialist and registered dietitian. And Elisa Cuevas is our specialist that covers the CACFP program. Our emails are on there. Our phone number is on there. Please reach out if you have questions or concerns.